Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. We're going back in a time machine today. I work on a beautiful Daiwa. It's part of their Silver Series. It's the 1000X model. And this one is, well, sent in by James, and it's really hard to turn. Being hard to turn, it generally means that you either have dried grease in there or no grease in there. We're going to find out which one it is. So we're going to get started on this one. We're going to service the reel. We'll show you how to take it apart if you happen to have one of these, and well, how to service it and keep it running for a long time to come. This is a classic. It's in beautiful condition. The reel was made in Japan, and we're going to get started. We'll take off the exterior pieces and parts, see if we can't get that spool off to begin with. There you go. And well, as I take off the remaining pieces and parts, starting with the handle, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. If you like to learn about fishing reels, if you like to understand how to service them, how to diagnose problems and issues that arise in these mechanical devices, and if you just want to gain an appreciation for what were the good reels and what were maybe the not so good reels, then I would encourage you to subscribe to my channel. And if you do subscribe to the channel, please use that notification button, as well as like the video if you do like the video. It all helps you, and it will help me as well. Okay, there's 3 exterior screws on this case. This is screw number 2. And when I take my pieces and parts off, I put them into a parts tray. I use that parts tray to keep track of where all those pieces are going when I remove them, so when it's time to reinstall, I know where they are. I also recommend, if you're new to this, to take pictures as you remove the pieces and parts, so that you have reference points along the way in case you get stuck. Getting stuck is one thing here. I want to make sure that I'm in the off position for the anti-reverse. That's because if you pull something out here and you have that engaged, sometimes you're going to pop a spring or something. So it's always a good practice when removing the side plates to make sure you're in an anti-reverse position if you have an anti-reverse lever on your reel. All right, that's off to the side. We'll get our first look inside, and this is a case of dried grease. It may look like it's nice and shiny and fresh. It's not going to come out that way. All right, so we're going to remove the side plate. It's a metal side plate. Then we have a kind of a traditional crosswind arm setup for the period. Where's the period? Well, it's late 70s, early 80s. And this usually has a pin, but in this case I think it's just sitting on the pin. So we should be able to rotate our fishing reel down and take the bearing off. Or plastic bushing, I guess. Yeah, you can see how it's sticking here. I'm just going to put that here until we clean that up a little bit. We can bring the axle shaft down. I don't know if we can remove this, probably not. I'm going to take the screw out of the axle shaft. That should come out. I think it's probably got a bearing or bushing on the other side that's stuck. That's okay. Do it this way. It all has to get cleaned up in the end anyway. So we've removed the screw that's holding the crosswind block and axle shaft together. Now we should be able to pull up and out on the axle shaft. Grab the top, hold the bottom. Yeah, that grease is dried so much that it's actually acting as a bonding agent here. One way to solve that is put the spool back on. That'll give you a little bit of leverage. Then grab a pliers to hold the bottom piece and see if you can't use that as a way to pull that out. Oh, we got that out successfully. So let's take that part and put that into the tray. Now we should be able to remove this. We probably have the bearing stuck on the back. Oh, the bushing, yeah. And you can see the hardened grease here now. It's all over this bushing. It's stuck in the back case. And, well, let's clean up in aisle number 7. That's what's slowing this reel down. So I'm going to remove chunks using a pick or a screwdriver or something similar. get the hardened grease out as best I can. Look at that, it's all green grease. It would fool you. You would think, okay, I got good grease in there because, well, I see it and it looks fresh, but it's not. It's coming out in chunks. Now some may question why plastic bushings in this reel, if it was a very good or an upper end reel. Well, this is a pond reel. This is a 1,000 size reel. And you don't really need that much. We got an example here that just showed up on my desk. Here's a similar sized reel, one of these Amazon reels. It's got 10 plus 1 ball bearings in it. Well, to fight a crappie, are you kidding me? But there's a race to see how many ball bearings you can put in a reel. Funny thing with that is, for those of you that have watched me take apart some of these Amazon reels, you know that, well, somebody who made that reel can't count because the bearings aren't there that they claim are there. All right, that's a pretty good cleanup to start with. We'll get back under there in a moment. All right, so I have the axle shaft and the spool. Separate those, put those in. A little bit of a cleanup on that bearing. I'm going to use some penetrating oil just to let that sit for a moment. See if I can't clean that up a little bit more. Let that sit in the case. And here's another one here. You'll notice that I'm working on a paper towel. And that paper towel just keeps that dirt and debris from transferring over to my primary wood stop. Now look how much nice and cleaner that is, just with a little bit of penetrating oil to wipe it down. Well, you can see the biggest culprit here is the back of this main gear. That's all old grease. You saw how it was sitting in that other bushing, and well, between the two of them, it was just kind of forming a bond, much like that axle shaft in the crosswind block was doing. And well, it's just not good for performance, right? All right, again, I'm using the flat side of a screwdriver here to kind of push that off. Let's fold this over so we don't transfer any more of that. A little bit of penetrating oil on there again. Hard brush. They sell these brushes in packs. You can usually get a hard bristle brush, a brass brush, and a wire brush, steel, for a couple of dollars. And they just have a good way of helping to get into these small cracks and crevices. There's performance issues on this side too, of course, because we saw when we did this that even though it's got a nice shine and sheen to it, that crosswind arm wasn't doing anything. So let's make sure that we mop this up as well. I'm going to clean the inside of this. So I would say this reel has not been fished in a very long time. And I'm basing that judgment on how thick and how dried this grease is. If you were fishing it, at least it would move it around. It wouldn't keep it in one place where it would accumulate and dry out. All right, the main gear is nice and clean now. So we got one more area to address, and that's up top here, and that is a 10 millimeter, I think. And we want to remove that in the traditional counterclockwise manner. This is an older reel, so it has a metal jacketed setup for it. That's a nice overall reel. I'm just going to use that penetrating oil again to oil the seams of that bail. As long as that bail is firing nice and easy, you do not need to take that bail apart. If you see any dirt and debris under here, clean it. From a maintenance standpoint, just a little bit of oil. There's a spring in the back here. You might see it as the bail arms trip. You just want to make sure that it flows nice and free and easy. On this side, we have a anti-reverse dog. It's held in with a spring. We have the click ratchet. When you take that off, notice which side is which, because there is an up and a down to that. And then we can remove those two screws, change out our paper towel, and pull that assembly. Well, If you have any questions on this reel or any reel, I would recommend that you leave those in the comments section. I will try to answer those for you. It could be a question on anything. It doesn't even have to be on this reel. Maybe you want to know a little bit more about the competitive reels at the time, like the Ryobis and the Shimanos, maybe, and the Olympics. They were all made in Japan about the same era. If you maybe you want to know more about the setups and the mechanics, and maybe you have a question on another reel. Maybe it's a more modern reel like the one I just showed you over there, and you're stuck on something. You can't diagnose the problem, and well, you just want to get it fixed so you can take it fishing again. That's kind of what this is all about. And I would encourage you to leave those questions in that comment section. All right, bottom of the case is pretty clean. We're just going to do one more time here as we pay attention to the top part. This is your collar. We took the 2 screws out there. Here's a bearing. And when I did a quick test on it, it wasn't an issue with the bearing. I'm going to oil that bearing. And then just like everything else, we've got a lot of dried grease on the pinion gear. So we're going to go take a quick shot of that. And right back to what we were doing before. Just grab a bristle brush, pull on that. If it's a little too tight, go in there. As I'm seeing, I'm using well, just a general pick. Some folks go to flea markets and places, buy some dental tools. Those are good ways to get into some of these slots. But whatever it is, you need to clean out the old grease if you want this to perform optimally. All right, one more time with that. We got a nice clean pinion gear. While you do this, you want to inspect. You want to make sure that all of the pieces and parts are uniform, that they're not damaged. In this case, it'd be very difficult to get a replacement if this was damaged, unless you found a donor reel. And that's going to be difficult to do. All right, good amount of fishing reel grease back on. The blue grease is called Penn Precision Reel Grease, for those of you that are wondering which grease I'm using here. Let's reset this. Bring the collar in. And then we have these 2 little screws, which will drive me crazy, trying to get them back on. But eventually we will get them back on. I'm using a dab of grease right now to hold that screw in place on the tip of my screwdriver. And as you can see, they don't line up perfectly, so don't tighten that one all the way down until you have the hole for that other one aligned properly. Let's see if we can still use that same grease maybe. All right, I think we got it. And the reason why I said to pay attention to that click ratchet is that if you turn it upside down, you're not going to have an anti-reverse because those little claws will be facing the wrong way. Let's reseat that. Bring that over. We can take our rotor now, put the rotor on. Put our rotor nut. Now there's no clamps or holds here. This is just straight on. Sometimes you're going to find a washer underneath there. Sometimes it'll be reverse threaded. In that case, this is not any of the above. All right, tighten that down. Give it a spin. What a difference that's making already for sure. Check your bail. You can check your bail now. Make sure that it trips nice and easy. All right, just wipe down a little bit more of that inner case that we were working on. And we can go reassemble that. First up then, I guess we want to just make sure that that back bushing there is clean, and it still has a little bit of that debris on there. So this is the time to do that. I don't know what the grease was, but it's discolored the bushing in the back here. Funny that they use 2 different colored bushings. They have a white one for the back, and they have a black one for the front. Maybe that's to help in the assembly of it when they were making this up. Maybe the 2 different sizes, and whoever the folks were that were putting the reels together. Well, you don't confuse it if you know the back one is white and the front one is black. I guess that aids in manufacturing efficiency. Who'd have thunk? All right, there you go. Got that all buttered up. Before I put that in, I want to take that crosswind block. I want to reseat that. Bring that in. Notice that on that crosswind block you have two sides. You want to get it right. That's where a picture would have helped earlier. A little bit of grease into that channel where it's going to slide. We can bring our axle shaft down. Make sure you wipe that off before you put that in. Bring that down. Insert that. Kind of reversing what we did earlier. We want to make sure that we can get this aligned properly. And once you have that set up, you'll get that screw. That's the flat-headed screw. This one I think was magnetic, if I remember. Kind of came out without falling off my driver, so we'll assume that one's a magnetic steel. Bring that in. We've greased up our main gear so we can make that work. We've cleaned up our crosswind gear. Bring that on. We have our front bearing, and I lied. I didn't observe well. I didn't lie. It only looked like it was dark because it had dried grease on it. It is actually the same bushing as the back side. So disregard all the stuff I said about somebody getting smart from a manufacturing standpoint. Doesn't apply. All right. Get this on and up. A little bit of grease there just to hold it. Help it along, glide under. And I suspect that this thing is going to be quite a difference in performance than the other one. Case goes on. Make sure that you have a nice tight seam on your case. We have 3 screws. Put those on. One more after this. Then we'll take a look at that spool. Again, this one looks like it's not been fished for some time, so you want to check the dried components in the spool. That spool is similar to a Mitchell spool, which has been around for a long time, or a damn quick spool. It has that quick release to it. That's because you could get multiple spools and have different line weights on those. All right, take that, handle goes in. We're all set up on the handle. Let's take a look at the spool now. You remove your, this is going to come out, this is a shaft. So you want to remove the spool. Very much a Mitchell type of an assembly. You can push this through. You have generally a little washer under here, a bigger washer here. This washer is a Teflon washer, so all you want to do is kind of rub off any of the dirt that might be on here. And this is far more drag than you're ever going to need, and it's never going to wear out on you unless you hook up with Nessie, the Loch Ness Monster. This will never spin that stuff off. Tension washer. Tension adjuster knob. Put it on, we'll give it a final test, see how we did. So James also sent me an earlier Daiwa reel, the one, I think it was the 500 maybe, 100. Look at this, what a difference. Spins nice and free and easy without effort. We also noticed that the anti-reverse is on. Make sure that the anti-reverse works off. works on, ready to go fishing. Here's the other one that James had sent in. This was the Daiwa 1000C, which is actually the reel that is in the Silver Series. But both of these are fine examples of well-made Daiwa reels manufactured in Japan. I hope you've enjoyed that. Before I go, I want to thank our first responders and essential personnel for everything it is that they do to keep us out of harm's way. I want to thank you, the viewer, for staying with us, for your suggestions, your comments, and the way that you've helped the channel evolve. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.